WELSTech is a bi-weekly podcast exploring the intersections of technology and ministry. It is part of the podcast network sponsored by WELS, the Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod. Our show today is hosted by Martin Spriggs and Sally Draper. Welcome back to WELSTech, everybody. This is episode 746, and we're recording it on March 20th, 2025. My name is Martin Spriggs, and this is a show about technology and ministry and where those two intersect. Joining me, as usual, our co-host, Sally Draper. Hello, Sally.
Hi, Martin. Happy to be joining you today. Also happy that this is a education discussion day. And so we have two more guests.
We brought in some help, yes.
Joining us.
Yep.
Start off with Professor, no, I shouldn't call you Professor, should I? Dr. Rachel Reno. Congratulations, Rachel.
I didn't hear that. Did you, they let you become a doctor?
They did let me become a doctor.
Awesome. Yep. That's awesome.
One week ago today, I was also sitting in front of a camera, except I was defending a thesis and not talking to you lovely people. So this is much less stressful.
Nice. Apparently it went well. What was your thesis on?
It's about the effectiveness of digital badges in higher education faculty professional development.
Nice. Have we ever talked with you about digital badges?
We have not.
Oh my gosh.
Putting
she
it
might
on the
charge
list.
us for that one, but that's awesome, Rachel. Thank you for continuing to join us even in your elevated state. Speaking of elevated states, up north of us is Jason Schmidt, and he's joining us as well. Hey, Jason, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, Martin. I am.
He upped his game with his attire today. Those of you that are watching at home, suit, tie. Oh my gosh!
I gotta play the part every once in a while. I gotta trick
right.
it. It makes
you heard
people
Rachel
think
was
I
a doctor,
know what
and this
I'm
is the
talking
best
about.
he could bring. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And to Rachel, all I have to say is badges. We don't need no stinking badges.
I can't wait for that show.
Oh, this is going to be a good one. I like this.
All right. Very good. Well, thanks to both of you for joining us. Once a month during the school year, we talk about educational technology, and Rachel and Jason have been joining us for those conversations, and we've been kind of in SAMR mode. SAMR is a technology integration framework, stands for substitution, augmentation, modification, and of course, the beloved redefinition. That's the holy grail. That's where you want to get. And we kind of take a little bit different view of it, look at it from all different sides. And today we thought, hey, let's talk about that from a secondary education perspective. So it's a little bit different perspective, and I think things change. It's technology isn't just technology as you knew it, maybe as a third grader. Now that you are a 11th grader, there's some differences, and that's what we want to talk about with these guys. So where would you like to start?
Well, I think before we get too far into this, Martin, I want to take a little bit of umbrage at your introductory comment. Okay. So that's not to say, like, we use SAMR as a framework to talk about the way in which we're using technology. And it's not really that any one level is better or worse than another. But really, like, it gives us a way to talk about these things and to have those those conversations about how can I make things more meaningful for students. Like I would say, like we want to visit redefinition, but if we want to live there, like that's exhausting.
Yep.
And I don't know of anybody who's got the stamina to be able to be there. But I just wanted to make sure that we were really clear
accepted.
on that.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. All right.
So why is this a topic? Why do we need to think or maybe talk differently about secondary ed?
From my perspective, I look at the SAMR framework and particularly at secondary, I think this is where we may battle we may battle some of these conversations the most because it is that's the area where the students are most like the adults, and there's still a bit of a challenge, particularly on like the transactional nature of the education that we're providing to students. So there's a lot of it. It becomes not so much. It's more of a tool for students to hand their things in, and I think it can be a bit of a challenge to get out of that mindset of like we're doing things efficiently, rather than rethinking the way that we do the work and the way that we teach kids.
Yeah, I think too that the high school level offers us some of the best ways to really use technology effectively. If I'm thinking about collaborating or sharing with an audience, those things are a little trickier at the grade school level. I'm not going to have my second graders probably collaborate in a Google Doc when having a big piece of poster board for them is probably better in most cases. But when we're talking about bigger group projects or things that can really be impactful in the community or within their school, that's where technology can really help these students. And I don't know as that it, like Jason said, often we're focusing on those substitution things. Can we get our tests graded faster? Can we, use Google Docs to make comments on essays faster, which are all great things. But then we're missing out a little bit on really what technology can do for these students and their engagement.
Yeah, and I think to build off of that, we kind of like we use those efficiency gains as like that's the foot in the door, right? So, like it takes a lot of time to grade tests. It takes a lot of time to grade essays and all of those things. And if we can leverage technology to do a lot of those things more efficiently, then that frees up some time so that now, okay, let's take another look at the things that we're doing and how can I incorporate different strategies in there to move up that engagement ladder, and then through the use of SAMR, to like move through some more of those engaging activities so that we can get kids involved with their community. We can get them, help them find a broader audience, like all of those things, and then really realize the promise of the tools that we're putting in front of kids.
I think technology too at the high school level has such a better integration with their future and what they're maybe going to be doing in the workforce. I think about a research paper. Now I'm real weird and I love writing a good research paper, but I can't tell you ever that I've had to write a research paper outside of being a student. But what I have had to do is collect information and, figure out background knowledge and what are the impacts of this particular situation and present that maybe to a committee or in some sort of a meeting or to parents at my school in an engaging way. And what a great opportunity for us to allow students to build those real world skills in assessments that we have traditionally been doing.
So it seems like there's a lot of potential there. But if I were to survey kids maybe in my congregation, I would venture to guess that tech is kind of boring to them at this point. They aren't super excited like I was when the computer showed up in 1983 and it had Oregon Trail on it or whatever. It seems old hat and boring. Is that where we're missing the boat, like in terms of SAMR? Does that
And well,
relate?
Yeah, I think it does. So, if we're living at that substitution level, right, then all of a sudden our use of technology becomes completely transactional. And, if I'm going to have my kids write an essay at this point, I might as well also, like, if the point is to produce an essay, it's probably going to be honestly more authentic if I have them write it out by hand, because there's just so many tools out there that can generate an essay for me, right? So when we get past that, like I said, that transactional relationship where, I give you an assignment, you give me stuff back, and instead of me printing out like 500 pages, I get 400 assignments back, and I grade them on the computer, right? So what the SAMR model does is it forces us to reevaluate that. So if I'm like, for example, if I have an assignment where we're reading Macbeth and I'm going to have my students write a 3-paragraph essay, it needs to have this structure, they've got to include this many references, like blah, 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 blah. Like I need to have a conversation at that point with myself or with other peers, like, what is the point of this assignment? Like, what am I really trying to get at? And take that through that SAMR model to like, okay, wait, like, what are my objectives? How can I reframe the work that I'm having them do? Because right now, something like a Chat GPT or a Gemini or whatever can spit out a better essay than I could write. And so, like, what's the point of the assignment that I'm trying to do? And if you look at that through that SAMR model, the higher you get up into that, to like closer to that redefinition, the harder it's going to be for students to perform some illicit collaboration with the tools that are very commonly available and at their disposal.
Hmm. That's a great point. I never quite thought of it that way because these kids are getting very close to entering the workforce, and college is a very different animal too. How do you begin to simulate the work world? I guess if I were asked that question, I would say my work world revolves around projects, multi-step tasks that come up with some kind of series of deliverables, whether that's a report or a presentation, which I think is kind of what you said, Jason. So the the methodology that we're trying to kind of figure out what tools maybe they can use or how technology plays a role, very similar. When I am working on a project, I have to determine how I'm going to do that. What is the objective? So I have to be very clear on where I want to go, but then ultimately the creativity and the selection process and the decision making is probably where the assessment comes in, right? Because now you're assessing how well they're applying maybe the skills they've learned over the years and bringing it all together. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think that is perhaps why we've seen such a surge in project-based learning and Project
Mm,
Lead the Way, which is project-based learning, and those, STEM type classes, because those are centered around, okay, here's a problem. How am I going to fix it? What do I need to produce to share the fix? Does the fix actually work? Those real world um, those real world integrations, which are so much different than some of our more traditional assessments.
mhm.
Yeah, and the other thing that does is it when you're getting into more of those real life, real world kinds of applications, you're breaking down those silos. So that's another thing that we see a lot of at secondary level is like, okay, I've got a history teacher. My history teacher really loves history, and he wants you to love history too. And then I go to my science teacher, and like my science teacher really loves science, and like she wants you to love science too. And then so like all of these and then there's no linkage between each of them. But when you start getting into some of these more project based kinds of things, now all of a sudden, like, there are cross curricular applications, which would indicate, like, if we're doing those kinds of things successfully, kids are like, they like school better. They're better in school, like you have fewer discipline problems, like all of the other things that kind of go along with kids just being engaged. Really, like you really start to see some of those things when you broaden the scope and then also increase that the not necessarily how complicated the assignment is, but just the level of thought that needs to go into the preparation as we move closer to that redefinition on the scale really makes a difference.
Well,
So-
and to
I'm
throw
sorry.
another acronym in there, in our acronym soup, that really also supports the pillars of UDL, Universal Design for Learning, which is, research-based and shown to increase student engagement because we're giving kids choice, we're giving kids the ability to have their voice heard in different ways, and all those things that not only are we using technology, but we're supporting our students just as people.
And I was going to say, everything you guys are saying are pointing back to teachers and that big C word, changing. And maybe that's where this conversation is headed, is what does that look like if I'm intimidated by this concept? Is there an easy way to begin to make those kind of changes?
I don't know what Rachel has to say on this, but I would say no, like change is never easy, right? Because like so you always have to, anytime you got to navigate some sort of a change, you always got to start, like, pull out your inner Simon Sinek, right? Like, why I got to start with why. Why do I need to change? Why do I need to do something different? This worked for me. Why do I need to do something different for kids these days, right? They're so, I think so. I think that's really where you got to start, is just like, before you get into like what changes should we make, like we just need to recognize that kids are different. And like even within the last 5 years, I would say kids are just have such different needs than we would have experienced even like I said, even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Things are completely different now than they were when I was in high school. And I keep forgetting that I'm not as young as I used to be, right? So I mean, and it's hard, right? But I think like once you can recognize that, okay, like this isn't working, or this could be better, and you start taking that improvement mindset, now we can start taking a look at some of those activities. And my suggestion always is just like start with something small. Like if you have like one assignment that you really love, and it's just like for whatever reason kids are just not like, it's not working for them, or maybe it's the opposite situation. Maybe you have a lesson that you really love and that kids really love. What is it about that lesson that everybody really loves? And now take an element of that and try to incorporate it into something else. So is it the fact that the kids have choice? Is it the fact that they have a broader audience? Is it the fact that they're producing something meaningful or something along those lines? Like whatever it is that's that hook. Like how can I incorporate that into something else? And then you're taking something that's kind of a known quantity and then applying it in a different way, and then that helps to ease things along the way when you start needing to make some of those changes in the way that we approach things. Because it's not fair for us to say, well, I taught it, they should have learned it. That's not going to hold water anymore. We need to take a look at the way that we're doing things and the outcomes that we're seeing, and then adapt accordingly, because the kids in front of us are individuals, just like everybody else.
Mhm.
You say teacher change, and I think back to when I accepted the call to MLC. And at my grade school, we were looking for a new reading series, and how thankful I was to know that I was not going to have to deal with figuring out a new reading series, because I really didn't want to change. I liked what we had been doing for so long. But one thing that I've been using in my graduate class to help do some updating to the assignments and things is ChatGPT or Gemini. It does a astonishingly good job if I put in either an old assignment that I've used and ask it to tweak it, or if I say, these are the goals I want my students to accomplish, what's an assessment that could meet these goals. It has come up with some ideas I probably wouldn't have thought of myself, and is a fairly simple way to just get your mind thinking about different ideas.
So what's the challenge? What's the big challenge here in getting, time is always one that I hear a lot. I don't have time to invest in, this different way of doing things. I'm assuming there are resources, readily accessible resources. If somebody's serious, what is steps 1, 2, and 3 for them to move along the chain here, especially in secondary ed?
I've been talking a lot, so I was trying to give Rachel a chance, but since she didn't jump in, I'm just going to start talking.
Go for it.
So it's taking that. So, and once you've recognized that, yes, I need to do something different, like what I'm doing is not working. Like Rachel suggested, the easiest thing to do would just be to like take a current lesson plan. It's like, okay, this is what I do. Help me. And you can even use this like a ChatGPT or a Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
Like it'll understand that when you say SAMR, it's going to understand what you're
Right.
talking about. So you can just say like, evaluate this lesson plan for alignment with the SAMR model. Let me know about where it falls on the scale based on what you see here. And what are some things that I could do to elevate the student experience so that it goes beyond where it currently is, right? And then it's going to spit out some ideas. Now, and then the other thing that I would do is I would say, give me 15 different ways to do that. And then like out of those 15, probably 9 of them are going to be garbage, but I'll have 6 usable ideas that come out of that. Like, oh, okay, like I could probably do this and this might work with my kids, and and then just use it more. We have incredible potential with generative AI right now, to be able to access like stores and stores of information that is just not very well organized at this point. So to be able to do something like that, I think is like can be super useful, to use some of these generative AI tools to get some of those ideas. And then another thing that I would suggest, along with like that concept of using generative AI, Gemini, Google just released like within the last couple of days. They have what they call deep research that goes along with any prompt that you put in.
Mm-hmm.
So you could even take like if you wanna like you nerd out about like educational philosophy, or you have a doctorate in education technology, and like you just really love writing research reports. Like you can have Gemini write that for you, provide all of the references and resources, and then just go down the rabbit hole all on your own, and like just really dig into some of this stuff, because we have so much opportunity with the to use some of these tools, really to get us over the hump with some of these thoughts and ideas. And I guarantee nobody can use there's no reason for anybody to use the excuse, I didn't have enough time to differentiate that lesson, or I didn't have enough time to plan that lesson sufficiently, to be able to address different parts of the SAMR model. It takes 45 seconds to put in a prompt, upload the lesson, and see what the results come back. So you just need to use your time efficiently and effectively, and set that as a priority, and you'll make it happen.
Yeah.
And I think that needs,
go ahead.
Sorry, Martin.
Go ahead, Rachel.
I think that needs to be a focus of our schools too, that our teachers are given ample time to be good teachers, because it does, I think, take more time to be a good teacher than it did maybe 15, 20 years ago. With all the different technology, with all the different learning needs of our students, and other social emotional needs, I don't know that our current models of, how our teachers are, all the duties our teachers are given, is sustainable in some cases. And so when a school can really put its resources and emphasis towards how can we allow our teachers to be the good teachers that we know they are, I think that will also go a very long way in encouraging our teachers to try new things. Because if you don't feel like you have the time, I know time can easily be an excuse, and Jason's right, it doesn't take much time at all to put it into ChatGPT or Gemini. But it does take a lot of time to, rethink your processes. And then if you're grading something new, an assessment you haven't done before, you have to rethink, maybe rethink your rubric or rethink how you're making comments on things. So there's kind of quite it becomes an avalanche effect once you make one change. And I think that is, well, I know that is very scary for teachers. And so I think we need to have the support systems in place for our teachers to feel that they have the backup of administration or faculty or parents or whomever they need so that they can make those changes.
One of the more interesting conversations I've been having with my MLC students, a grad course on enhancing ministry with technology, has been, one of the assessments, one of the assignments was writing a book review. So we read 3 books through the course, and so there's a rubric attached to that. And what I do, and then what I ask them to do is run their review through some kind of AI assessment. Plug in the rubric, plug in your review, and ask what it thinks. You do the same with SEM or whatever. And then you're really asking the student to be self-aware and say, read this. And it forces them in some cases, if they want to disagree, to defend it. And that in itself is critical thinking, where you're now inspecting your own work and then, making incremental improvements, and then honest enough with yourself to say, yeah, maybe I dropped the ball, or maybe I didn't go deep enough there, or I wasn't thinking of that correctly. And then, like Jason said, it doesn't take long to do that. You build the prompt, and then you plug it in, and then you evaluate the results, or have a coworker do the same. Those are interesting conversations we've been having. So,
well,
like
and
to
how
see
close is
those
that
light
to real
bulbs.
life too, Martin? Right? Like
what's that?
how
Yeah,
close is that to real
workplace,
life?
right?
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly the way that we function on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yep. All right. Great conversation. Appreciate it. I think lots of opportunities here, and it's not just around AI. It's just continual improvement, just like it is in every position, every job. So nice. All right. Thanks for your thoughts, you guys. We should probably move along here to what's next? Ministry resources. Sally, what do we have here?
We wanted to make mention of a newsletter that's produced on a weekly basis that might be of interest to many who are listening. It's from our friend Grace Ungmach. Grace has been on the podcast before, but not really specifically about her own work, but work she was doing with the World Missions Office a while back. Now she's on her own, and she's got the URL Lutheran Marketing, which I think is really cool, Lutheran.marketing, and her learn.lutheran.marketing URL has this newsletter and links to all the past. So if you aren't subscribed, might be worth tapping into. She covers all kinds of things, font size guidelines, logo makeovers, event promotion, word of mouth still wins, digital tools that can bolster personal outreach, how to DIY your SEO, and lots of other things. And if you notice, many of her articles are just a 1 or 2 minute read. So she's not taking up very much room in your inbox, but she's delivering some really quality topics. So if you aren't subscribed to Grace's e-newsletter. Comes out on Friday mornings, and she's been doing it for several years now. Definitely head on over to learn.lutheran.marketing and get subscribed.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our picks of the week. And we let our guests go first and ladies first. Rachel.
That's this one.
All right. So my pick is the new MacBook Air. Best Buy got me because they sent me an email with a 2-year 0% financing offer. And I had just finished my defense. And so I told my husband, I think I should get a new toy. So I got this just earlier this week, and I'm still kind of figuring everything out about it. I had an M2 chip, and this is the M4 chip, so it is much faster. I went with the smaller screen size, 13-inch, mostly because they didn't have the 15-inch in stock, and I was very impatient and really wanted a new computer. But I think I've been using Macs since, about 2005. And one of my favorite parts is their trade-in value. My old one, they gave me almost $600 of trade-in value at Best Buy. And that, it was a couple years old. It still worked, no dings or anything like that. Like, I took good care of it, but that is quite the trade-in value for a new device, and also really helped explain to my husband that it would be okay if I got a new one. But it's got the Apple Intelligence and the Apple Image Playground and a great camera, which I really should be using on this podcast, I just realized. But so far, I really love it, and I'm looking forward to making it my own.
So what color did you get?
I went with the midnight.
Okay, the darker one. Yeah.
They had the like goldy colored one in stock too, but that just, I don't know, didn't quite match my aesthetic.
Right. Very nice. Congratulations on the new MacBook Air. Those are super light and I think probably a nice sweet spot for a lot of teachers, I would think. That would
Yeah.
really do the trick. So
yeah, I have an M3 and it's really nice. They're super light, battery lasts forever. And they're with education pricing, they're only $900, which for what you get that's a really good price.
Very nice. All right, Jason, you're up. What'd you bring?
All right. So if you happen to get yourself a brand new MacBook Air and are missing the headphone port that goes along with them, one of the devices that we're procuring a bunch of here in Oshkosh is the Logitech Zone Learn. So these are headphones. They come in two different styles. There's an on-ear and then there's an over-ear. And they range in price. You can get them on Amazon actually for like $15 now, which is pretty sweet. So they're super comfortable, like even for an adult to use. But what I really like about these is that the headphone cable is user replaceable. So one of the things that happens a lot, especially with like younger kids, for some reason, like they enjoy chewing on these. So like if it gets to the point where the cable is damaged, instead of having to discard the entire headset, you can just replace the cable for like $4 or $5. And then you're back at it, right? So these are really high quality. We've been really impressed with them so far. So they're it's just a nice set of headphones for kids that we are having a good experience with. So versatility is nice. And the ability to swap those cables out is like super helpful.
Yeah. Is that what you're wearing now?
No, I have. So these are they're still Logitech. They're still the Zone, but they're the Zone wireless. I don't know, Zone something. These are Bluetooth. but the student ones are only wired, but
Okay.
the wires are replaceable.
Cool.
My
Awesome.
MacBook Air does have an audio port.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
saying.
it does? Oh,
It does.
okay. I never use them, so I just figured Apple's making an iPhone with no ports. So
You would
I
think,
heard
but
maybe.
that.
no,
Yeah.
there's one on the side.
Oh,
Mm.
okay. All right.
Excellent. All right, Sal, you're up. What's up?
My pick is an oldie but a goodie because I decided I needed to do some mind mapping recently. Martin, you and I used to be lost without our mind maps for
Mm-hmm.
podcasting, and we've moved away from that over the last several years using OneNote for our show notes and pre-discussions and things like that. But recently I wanted to do some mind mapping and I went looking and found MindUp, which integrates nicely with Google Drive. And you can use it for free, up to certain limits or whatever. You can export your mind maps and very intuitive to work with them to make child and sibling nodes, to add images, just the real basics of mind mapping. I love the drag and drop capabilities of mind mapping and just a good way to organize your thoughts. If you aren't using Gemini to do that for you, I guess. MindMap 2, you can add within your Google Drive, and that is my pick of the week. It came in handy for me recently.
Nice. Can you,
But
one question I always have of mind mapping software is, can you export to like PDFs and share that kind of stuff or?
yeah, well, this that I'm showing you is actually a published version, but you
Okay,
can export to PDF as well. So it
cool.
gave me a URL to bring up and share that way.
Very
It
nice.
also will give you a little image, like a thumbnail to
Mm-hmm.
use to link to it or whatever. And so lots of capabilities there.
Cool. Like it.
So, but I
Mind
didn't
them.
come with just one. I have a bonus
Oh boy.
pick this week, and that's because I found boil the bag peanuts available online. And I know you guys all need some boiled peanuts in your life.
Only
So,
get that in the
yes,
South. Yeah.
I had to order some boil the bag peanuts. These come from South Carolina, and
Uh-huh.
they come in a container that looks like a brown paper bag and has a mesh bag inside with the proper peanuts for boiling, and you can do them in your crock pot. And so that's just what I did, and they turned out really fabulous. And this Mississippi girl is very happy to have boiled peanuts in her life again. So
Mhm.
you guys needed to know that, and I'm here on this show for that very reason. So there you have it.
Boil the bag peanuts.
There you go.
Boilthebag.com. Awesome. I love
Good
it.
stuff.
Yeah, when we were down in South Carolina, there was a couple vendors on corners that actually did that. So
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my pick of the week. I searched on WELSTech, wellstech.wells.net, the place to go if you want to find out anything we've talked about over the last however many years, and thought I must have talked about this pick before. DaVinci Resolve is a tool I use for every podcast, every video podcast. So I can't believe I've never picked this. But DaVinci Resolve is a video editing piece of software. There is a free, full functional version, which was one of the attractive parts of this. And I've been using this for years. Um, its paid version, which actually isn't that much either, is in use by Hollywood and professionals all over the world. So it is a legit video editing piece of software. So if you are in the market for it, it does editing a couple of different ways. It does sound editing. It does exporting or rendering for all kinds of different formats. So if you want to put it on YouTube or you just want to strip out the audio, which is what I do for this podcast for the audio portion. It has transitions, it has titling, it has all kinds of very easy to use editing tools. I think the its claim to fame is its color editing, and I don't change a lot of that for this podcast since we're kind of the same color the whole time. Our backgrounds are the same. That's the easy part. And I mostly just use it for this podcast, but I've used it for other projects too. But I thought if there is, any need out there, this would be my go-to. It is so much cheaper than like an Adobe Premiere and those kinds of things, and it's just as powerful. It runs great on like a MacBook Air. It has very low resource requirements. I think there's an iPad version as well, so if you like to do it there. But DaVinci Resolve is a project by Black Magic Design, which made AV cards, and they've made this software to go along with. So if you're in the market for something or just want to try to up your game a little bit from Movie Maker or what's the Windows version, Clipchamp or whatever it is, this is definitely a tool to try. It's multi-platform and good stuff. So that'd be my pick of the week.
And Martin, starting with the free version gives you enough tools to.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I've never had a need to go beyond the free version. So download it for free. It's a big program, and it'll take up a little bit of hard disk space, but I think it's worth it. All
and
right.
do you get the 3 screens and the multiple screen thing with
like
it?
on their website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be really nice.
No, you have to supply the screens.
Bummer.
And the computer too. All right, let's move on to community news and feedback.
And I just have one article that I wanted to share this week coming from Matt Miller, our friend over at Ditch That Textbook. He has a group now called AI for Admins. And if you aren't part of that, it might be a good place to tap into some conversations and resources around artificial intelligence in education. And I thought his he usually publishes a newsletter once a week to this group, and his article that he included this week was really fit well with our discussion of secondary tech integration and AI and all those things. And he basically came to the conclusion, and he has it here right at the top, that the more important it is, the less I lean on AI. The less important it is, the more I lean on AI. That was kind of a good standard to consider. However, he draws the conclusion also that adults and students don't think alike or use AI in the same way, and that we need to model and teach that type of thinking with AI. And just a really good read. He does talk a lot about the negative side of things, like policing it and punishing for it, trying to, push things through software to identify whether it was written by AI and things of that nature. And he labels them swing and a miss, basically, like that's not where it's at. But he has these scales of whether it's AI heavy or human heavy.
I like his phrase, or the prompt and paste.
Yeah, for the AI heavy,
Right,
turn it in, student doesn't develop any thinking, knowledge, or skills. This example here, be the bot activity, I thought was a really neat way, and maybe tied into some of those examples you guys were giving earlier in our discussion. He says, tell your students that you'll ask ChatGPT to make a judgment based on something they've studied, like what the character should have done next, or what are the top 3 most important historical innovations. And then students have to guess what the AI is going to say. So it is going to use AI, but at the end of the assignment, after the human thinking happens. And so the students can compare and contrast their human thoughts to what the AI said and do some critical thinking. And I thought that was a really neat example of ways to engage students and use AI in a more proper space. And then AI feedback on student writing and things like that kind of falls in the middle. Human thinking should come first, but allowing it to increase our abilities to reflect on what the student's written and things like that is not always a bad thing. So again, there's a lot in here about kind of what he calls coerced compliance and bullying students into it. But instead, he flips the tables on that, and he talks about modeling AI usage and making learning relevant, helping students to see the relevance so that they aren't just, following along because you said so or whatever, but helping them to want to delve into it and think critically. So I found it to be a really interesting article, and I thought I would share it with the class. So there you have it.
Very nice. Looks like a very thoughtful piece. I'm looking forward to reading it.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. All right, that's going to about do it for this week's WELSTech podcast. Our thanks, as usual, to our guest hosts. Dr. Rachel Reno, thank you for joining us once again. And
You're very welcome.
yeah. And Jason, thank you for your pearls of wisdom that you gave us as usual. So really appreciate
Always
you
a
being
pleasure.
here. So looking forward to our badge conversation. Dr. Badge can lead that for us. Awesome. Next time though, Sally, what are we talking about?
Looking forward to looking behind the scenes at what Canva can do for you in all kinds of ways. Canva is an amazing tool. Just recently, I had the opportunity to use it to do some presentation design and found it to be really useful in that regard. But I've used it for lots of graphical purposes. It has AI baked in, lots of different corners we can delve into and explore with Canvas. So
Keep
looking
hearing
forward to
there's
that
nothing
show.
that Canva can't do. We're going to put that to the test. So
Swiss Army knife.
yeah.
It is
All
amazing.
right. It is. All right. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. We really appreciate your eyes and ears, and bring a friend next time and we can talk about tech again. Bye-bye.